What is going on YouTube? This is Ask the Bruce. So I'm going to review the compilation album by Outkast. Basically, this project is called Boi and Dre present Outkast, and it came out in the late fall of 2001. So the thing about this particular project is Outkast hit a particular high in the year 2000 with the album Stankonia, which was a pretty big deal because it hit singles like B.O.B., Bombs Over Bad Dad, Miss Jackson, and So Fresh and So Clean, which were some dope hits around that particular time. Definitely a pretty revolutionary album for the year 2000. Kind of helped This is definitely something that helped revitalize like Southern rap music throughout the 2000s. Now, 2000 in the 2000s, Southern rap was a big deal with folks like Petey Pablo and Lil Jon and T.I. and Young Jock and Young Dro and Jeezy and a bunch of those folks as far as that pitch can have. But back in the year 2000, it wasn't quite as much full blown. I would have to say, apart from Outkast, there weren't many folks that were kind of revolutionizing things back in the year 2000. I mean, I think you would have, at least in terms of Southern hip hop, you would have Outkast, maybe a little bit of Mystical, maybe a little bit of Masterpiece, some of those type folks, but there weren't an abundance of real dominant type folks. UGK kind of, despite the fact that Pimp C went to prison in the early 2000s for a good while, so it's just kind of the concept. And then you also had 36 Mafia, that was another good dominant type one, but it just wasn't as full blown. The hits were not as chock full and just abundant as far as that particular pitch kind of happened. It was kind of before the ringtone rap and MySpace. Outkast dominance was kind of before the ringtone rap and MySpace days as far as that pitch can happen, and just stuff like that. The download dates as far as that particular pitch can happen. But I would have to say still some excellent stuff here. This is a follow-up project to Stankonia just to capitalize on the success. I like that Big Boi and Andre 3000 said that this was basically. I like that Big Boi and Andre 3000 basically said that this was like some summer school 101 on Outkast, just to kind of get up to speed with them as far as that pitch can happen for all the new fans that they got after Stankonia with their hit singles. But basically, Outkast was kind of low key. I mean, they had some charting hits with albums like ATLiens and Aquamini and Southern Playalistic, Cadillac Music, some of those type ones, but it wasn't as full blown as what they got with Stankonia, I'd have to say. So it was a good concept to capitalize on that success and put this project out. That was definitely a good concept to kind of, that was definitely a highlighted idea to kind of do that in particular. But this would be like a classic album, and it's not really like a full blown greatest hits, but definitely is an amalgamation. There's some new stuff on here which is pretty kick ass. There is a brand new single that's pretty awesome. Definitely reminds me of like Hey Ya and Roses. Definitely has some Andre 3000 type feels about it that just had him in his emphatic kind of just gold. Midas touch golden touch had him in his Midas touch golden touch type days, and of course Big Boi had his southern swag on there, so it's just good stuff like that. But it's just kind of the concept that, yeah, Outkast was really predominant like in the early 2000s. Definitely a good concept, but it's just too bad that they never put out any more albums after. It is, of course, too bad that they never put out any further albums after Idlewild from 2006. They just kind of vanished and then just kind of went up in smoke. But originally, Andre 3000 was going to put out a solo album, supposed to come out in 2008 and then 2010 and pitches like that, but it just never did. But Big Boi had some solo albums that were pretty wicked. I'd have to say I'm going to get to some of those, but I'm going to get to some more Outkast down the road. But this is definitely a classic. This is definitely a classic compilation album, so we're going to get to talking about some of this. There was only one single off this album, but it's still pretty wicked to kind of get, and that's basically The Whole World, I'd have to say. So The Whole World is basically like a moody kind of blue-collar dredge of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This has some stellar commercial appeal about it, I would definitely have to say, and this is just good for some day commerce vibes, I would have to say, and it's a pretty interchangeable song. So I would definitely say if you like Andre 3000 off the Hey Ya type pitch, I would definitely say if you like Andre 3000 off the Hey Ya top. I would definitely say if you like Andre 3000 off the Hey Ya type pitch, I would have to say it's kind of an early format to that particular type song. It's the same type of template, just a sing-songy type one that works pretty well just within that pitch. And our song is pretty similar to his Roses. Some of those Andre 3000 from like the Love Below type days, just as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Very pop rap type tune that works pretty well. I want to say that this song almost won a Grammy or did win a Grammy, something like that in the early 2000s as far as that pitch can happen. Just a real, pretty much like a signature kind of Outkast song, despite the fact that this came out later in their career and this is kind of an underappreciated Outkast album. Still one of their best hits and most affable type ones that I'd say. Just they probably needed way more songs like this. I definitely think they probably could have stood to capitalize on this particular success because this was just. I mean, Big Boi is definitely good on this song. He definitely has some southern swag on here, and I like the fact that Killer Mike is on here too. He's pretty fly on the song. But I would have to say, really, Andre 3000 really has like some just Andre 3 Stacks was able to really have like some glistening swag on this particular song, just with making the hook and that sort of stuff. Just as far as the amalgamation behind it, I think that's kind of why folks liked Hey Ya so much back in those days, just because of that kind of vivid type of appeal. But this is another similar one to that fashion. Pretty good pitch for that. To basically talk about the songs I recommend on this album, there's 15 songs on here, not counting the intro. There's 16 songs in this particular album, but not counting the intro. That narrows it down to 15. So out of those 15, I wound up recommending to you 12. So I'll go ahead and just talk about real briefly the three songs I didn't recommend. Most of these are from Aquamini. Didn't really enjoy Rosa Parks that much. That one just kind of had like a poor production. I think that one was just trying to be like a park type tune, just something for like just hop and bop on a day activity. I just didn't really appreciate that one that much. And then Aquamini was just kind of a poor type version of like Southern Playalistic Cadillac music. Aquamini was trying to be like some car funk kind of cruise out type music, this kind of this lazy sunny summer, this kind of a lazy sunny summer day, something in that relative pitch, but it just didn't pull it off as well as they did on Southern Playalistic, I'd have to say. And the only other song I didn't recommend on here was just Get Up, Get Out, which that one from Southern Playalistic, that was the third single off that particular album. It's just too bad that song didn't hit heavier. And I probably would have liked that one. It's a pretty good song, actually, for the most part. It's just too lengthy, I'd have to say. They probably should have shortened it a bit. It's just 7.5 minutes was a little bit of a tiresome listen to kind of have, somewhat of a tiresome listen to kind of commit to as far as that pitch can happen. But basically, every other song, yeah, this album's going to get a 10 out of 10 just because it has so many hit songs. Basically, most of Outkast's best hits are on these particular songs. Basically, most of Outkast's best hits are on this particular album. So I would even say Get Up, Get Out would probably have been one if it had just been shortened, I would have to say. But that's pretty much the only, but pretty much those are the three songs I don't recommend. So every other song is basically in some fashion song I full blown recommend, including the two new songs, which would be Funkin' Around and Moving Cool, the After Party. So those are some excellent kind of extra nice ones I would have to say in addition to the whole world, I'd have to say. But we'll go ahead and talk about some of these songs here. So I'll go ahead and talk about the Stankonia songs first. Basically, B.O.B. Bombs Over Baghdad. Basically, B.O.B. Bombs Over Baghdad's a pretty highlighted one. This is like a jivey kind of evening bristle of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This is just some outdoor festivities, I would have to say. Pretty good concept for that. And this is just a good social noise about this particular song I definitely enjoyed. And this just has this is a quality buzz single, I'd have to say. And it's definitely a pretty underrated type song. This is the single off of Stankonia that got the least amount of appeal, but it is a pretty highlighted one, I would have to say in particular. It's just kind of a good buzz single. This works within that sense. Definitely good for like going to some sports games, stuff like that, just outdoor festivities, things of that nature. Just smoke is just in the out and about type fare. Just in the out and about type fare, just kind of almost city hopping, but just kind of more at an event like a football game, something in that relative pitch. Just a little bit of just it's kind of a vivid out and just feeling your hair in the wind as far as that pitch kind of goes. So that's a pretty nice one. Miss Jackson is, of course, Miss Jackson is, of course, a signature kind of Outkast song. This is a song that hit #1. Definitely one of their biggest songs, apart from like Roses and Hey Ya and The Way You Move, as far as those pitches kind of happen with it. But this is basically like a class. This song is basically like a classic 2000s Southern rap hit, I would have to say in particular. It's definitely one of the best rap songs of like the early 2000s. I'd have to say just that much of a big deal, I'd have to say in particular. Very catchy song, this is a very catchy chorus on this particular song. Pretty distinct. You probably heard it at some pitch. If you don't know about this song, I would have to say it's definitely one that's been around quite a bit. And this is just an overall kind of bouncy song. So I like some of these club hoppers on here. I would also say that B.O.B. would kind of be a club hopper of a song, just not as much, more outdoor type stuff. But Miss Jackson's definitely kind of a breezy kind of club type song, just to kind of get in particular. It's also a pretty good house party bop, I would have to say, just for like some house party sleeves as far as that pitch can happen. Just kind of that dredge of just like after hours type pitch, just being 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock p.m., just the beers popping, things like that. PlayStation music, footballs on some of those type pitches, just kind of the malaise of it, just smoking a few swishers, things like that, just within that relative pitch. Some easy kind of kickback. A good hangout song, but it's also a good club song. So I like that it's kind of social and it's kind of it's around the house social, but it's also outing social. So it's a good bop, but definitely a pretty distinct chorus and definitely one of Outkast best. And definitely one of Outkast's best, I'd have to say. So Fresh, So Clean, it's a pretty good highlight on here. This is another good follow-up. This is probably the second biggest song off the Stankonia. This is definitely the second biggest song off the Stankonia album. This was a good follow-up. This just came out of nowhere as far as that pitch can happen. Just an easy kind of highlight, especially for 2001, 2000. It was just a good pitch to kind of get this one. Definitely a clever hit that helped. Definitely a clever type hit that helped carve out like Southern rap in like the early 2000s as far as that pitch happened. Between Miss Jackson, So Fresh, So Clean, those were like a good 1-2 punch that kind of was like, hey, this album's kind of dope as fuck as far as that pitch kind of happened with it. But this particular song is a woozy but glitzy nightclub bop, I would have to say, with like a glistening chorus. I would definitely feel like in particular it's a pretty nice one for that. This is just a classic Outkast hit, I would have to say in particular, and it's a pretty good mid-dance type song, I would have to say. So it's pretty nice one. This is like a good mid-dance type groove. It's basically like a pretty good mid-dance type song, I would have to say in particular. It just works for that sort of sense. Could be played at dances and just things of that nature, dance clubs, some of those type pitches, just out and about, just kind of that type fare, just within that relative pitch. This works as a pretty good concept as far as that kind of goes. This would have to say. It's a pretty good nightclub type song, bottles popping, some of those type things, just being able to kind of have some festivities. Just a real smooth type song. Really, the chorus, I like the fact that Outkast had some better choruses. I think if they had had like a fourth single I think if they would have had like a fourth single on like Stankonia, it probably would have been like a full blown classic. I mean, I definitely think it's debatable. Definitely a pretty good argument to say that Stankonia is damn near a classic. I definitely feel like it revolutionized a lot of things in like the year 2000, but I still feel like, in my personal opinion, it was like a song short of being like a full blown classic, just compared to like having like another hit single that it needed. I think Miss Jackson, So Fresh, So Clean were some great singles. I definitely think Miss Jackson and So Fresh and So Clean were definitely some dope singles as far as that pitch can have. Definite good 1-2 punch, but I kind of feel like B.O.B. was kind of underrated and didn't quite perform as well as it needed to. And it just needed like another follow-up, something that could have definitely did that damage. Like when you think of Ludacris and Word of Mouth, or you think of Eminem, the Eminem show, some of those type pitches, just as far as having those hits. I mean, usually getting to about 4 singles is what signifies like a full-blown kind of classic. It just was a little bit mildly underhanded, but still pretty good concept of a project. If it just had one more single, I probably would have full blown said that that was like inescapable. But for what it is, the 3 singles off Stankonia are still pretty damn good. But some of these new type songs are pretty awesome too. I feel like Funkin' Around's a pretty highlighted type one. It's like a jazzy kind of evening pizzazz of a song. I'd have to say it's like a thumping turn up in like a 70s like groove. I would have to say in particular, good concept for that. There's just like some exciting kind of nightclub bounce about this particular song. So I definitely like some of these new Outkast songs. I do think that they probably could have stood to have had another single on here. Funkin' Around might have just been the one that could have done it. I mean, it has Sleepy Brown, and Sleepy Brown helped out with the hook on Way You Move, just within that concept from 2003. So usually the Outkast and Sleepy Brown songs are pretty damn good, I'd have to say. Usually the Outkast and Sleepy Brown type songs are pretty damn good, I'd have to say, but there's just some jazzy kind of pizzazz. But there's just a real jazzy type one that has a pretty emphatic production. Just works pretty damn well. Definitely one of the best songs on the album in terms of this, like, well, really, this whole album is pretty damn good. Like I said, this is going to get a 10 out of 10. But this is just an excellent new song that works pretty well. Same thing with Moving Cool, the after party. This is a nice one. This is like a slagged kind of lounge. Moving Cool is like a slagged kind of lounge lizard type music, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a good suave outing grace for like some after moments at a night outing and stuff, for like some after moments at like a night outing, some stuff like that. Just that relative after effect type pitch, I would have to say in particular. Afterthought type music, I definitely have to say this is good for some schmoozing. I would definitely feel like, and this is just a pretty groovy song. So I like the fact that Outkast really had some good pizzazz about some of these songs. I did like the blue collar pitch, like the whole world, definitely pretty affable type single, but I do like some of these after effect type songs that just showcase Outkast in like a new light. Definitely, this is a very brief window for Outkast as far as that pitch can happen, just because it wasn't quite in like the wasn't quite in the speaker box love below type days, but also wasn't in the Stankonia days. So this is really truly like the last true taste of Outkast in terms of like the new music that they did, where they weren't just solo acts on like one album as far as that pitch can happen with Idlewild and the speaker box love below. So this is kind of like the last true taste of Outkast songs just that they did in that format. It's a pretty good concept. These are some definite good bursts of songs here. I'd have to say definitely I would pick up this project. It's easily a classic, like I was saying. So but a pretty pitched song that I definitely enjoyed on here was Elevators, Me and You. This is a nice one. This is like a crispy kind of nightclub snazz of a song, I have to say in particular. This is kind of a stark 90s Outkast hit, I would have to say in particular, but it has appeal. And like this song definitely has some appeal about it, I'd have to say. And this is like an initial kind of breadwinner, I'd have to say. So this is a pretty good club type song from Outkast as far as that pitch kind of goes. Definitely one. It's not a ton of club songs on this particular album, I'd have to say. Some of these ones, especially the ones off of Southern Playlistic, Cadillac Music, are a lot more cruising type tunes and just stuff like that. Just kind of more Cadillac cruising, just lazy summer day type tunes as far as that pitch kind of goes. I kind of feel like the one song from AT Aliens, this is just a crisp. Elevators is just a real crisp and crispy kind of nightclub type tune. This has a real smoky type feel about it that just works pretty well. Not a common kind of nightclub production, I would have to say. Just had the instruments that are used on this particular song are just a little bit different and kind of differently affable as far as that pitch kind of goes. Just a good concept. Came out in 1996. Back in those days, Tupac was still alive and Biggie was still alive, some of those type pitches. So it's just an interesting concept of getting some of these type pitches. Just kind of seeing what Southern hip hop was up to just back in the mid 90s when things were different as far as that kind of went. But it's a good concept. Of course, a classic Southern hit, and just probably a revolutionary song in terms of Southern hip hop and especially Atlanta hip hop was Players Ball. This is definitely very UGK reminiscent Southern swag tune, I would have to say. Definitely appreciate this song. It's like a lazy kind of summer day haze, I would have to suppose. This just has like a catchy Pimp C like hook on it. It's just a pretty affable song. So I definitely like this one. If you like the hooks that Pimp C does for UGK, this one's very damn similar to that particular pitch. Players Ball is just a classic kind of Southern hip hop type tune. Like I was saying, just a good concept, kind of get that one. It's a little bit retro, kind of the concept behind it. It's just kind of a retro type song that's not quite boom bap, but definitely something that feels ripped out at 93, 94, some of that type pitch before like G Funk and things like that were really, before G Funk and things like that were really starting to revolutionize type things. But the thing about it was really it was Outkast really in Southern hip hop, it was folks like Outkast, Scarface, and UGK that were really starting to revolutionize things in terms of getting things past like the boom bap type sound as far as that kind of pitch, as far as that pitch kind of particularly went with it. So these were just some initial type ones, but it's just a pretty emphatic album. Eventually, I'm gonna have to review Southern Playalistic, but I would have to say it's a good concept to get some of these. Most of the songs on Southern Playalistic are just kind of Cadillac type tunes. Most of the songs on Southern Playalistic are just kind of cruise out type songs just within that relative pitch. But I do like these songs, definitely some classic type ones to just smoke a sweet and some of those type pitches definitely. Ain't No Thing Southern Playalistic's a pretty nice one. It's like a smoke heavy hot box in the car. It's like a smoke heavy hot box the car type gem. I would have to say in particular. This song's like a hazy kind of Wu-Tang similar type vibes that it has in particular, and this is just kind of in a southern sense, I would have to say about that particular pitch, and this is just like a vintage type song, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty nice one. Definitely appreciate this one. Definitely reminds me of something that D12 or Wu-Tang, some of those type folks, the more kind of boom bap type stuff that kind of went along with this. Just the concept that Outkast did a pretty good job of making this southern fried, but just within the concept of doing it. Definitely reminds me, it's a real excellent type one to hotbox the whip as far as that particular pitch kind of having, just smoking hella stogies, stuff like that as far as that particular pitch kind of having, getting some McDonald's, getting some Burger King, some of those type pitches, just getting some snackage, just hotboxing the car, just smoke filled car, stuff like that. Just some good concepts. It's real good. Relative pitch. I do like that one. Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. The title track's a pretty nice one. It's like a buttery smooth kind of funkadelic UGK like Drew. It's like a buttery smooth funkadelic UGK like Drew. I'd have to say in particular, this is good for like a lazy summer day for cruising and Swisher Sweets. I'd have to suppose in particular. So it's a pretty nice one. This has another good chorus. This has another good smooth chorus on there, very similar to Pimp C. Once again, just some good concepts. This is a good 1-2 punch with play. Southern Playalistic is a good 1-2 punch with Players Ball. I'd have to say these are just some excellent type ones for cruising out and just having some great times, and especially some smokage, snackage, some stuff like that. Just some lazy summer days as far as that pitch kind of goes. Now, I do recognize that obviously when you listen to Southern Playalistic, the productions are a little bit worse compared to some of the stuff that they did later on, especially in the 2000s forward. But I would have to say just the concept of it is just some vintage kind of 90s type tunes. It should take you back, should just make you really want to smoke and cruise around some of those type pitches. Just a little bit more refined and mature type sound as far as that pitch kind of goes. But it's just the concept of it just being a little bit more minimalist, but still being able to be effective. These were just, I mean, Southern Playalistic was kind of revolutionary album, so that's kind of the concept about it. But Crumbling Herbs, another nice one. This is like a mellow, kind of dreary, late day cruise music of a song. I'd have to say this song has an emphatic but lazy feeling about it. I'd have to say in particular, and this is just going to have, this song would just be going to have like a low key time. I'd have to suppose in particular. So this is definitely one. This is a good stepping out type song. To Crumbling Herb is like a good getting ready to step out type song as far as that pitch kind of happens. Not quite as full blown emphatic as Play His Ball and Southern Playalistic, but definitely a good one for just the emphasis of just being, maybe having a little bit of smokage in your system, a little bit of ganja in your systems and stuff like that. Just getting ready to step out, have a good time. Just a real crisp type song. Just a real crisp type time. I would say. I don't know if that 1994 album had a full blown nightclub smash as far as that pitch kind of happened with it, but it does have some great cruising and just getting exhilarating type. But it does have some great cruising, getting exhilarated type music on there. I'd have to say. So that's some good concepts. Those are the four Southern Playalistic songs that I enjoyed quite a bit. And then I would have to say Spotty Oddie Dopalicious is a nice one. This is definitely a pretty popular song on Spotify. I was surprised how popular this song is just because it's not a single. This song is basically like an emphatic kind of Malays slow dance highlight. I'd have to say in particular, pretty good concept for that. This is just a romance gem, I'd have to say, and this is just a lucent. And this song is definitely pretty lucent with like some graceful vibes about it. So I just like the emphasis of this particular song. It's a real kind of romantic type song. It's great for like some slow dances, stuff like that. Just real kind of just it's really kind of ardent type song. This really has that romance feel about it. This really has that ardent and kind of romantic type feel about it. Just a real emphatic type one. It's just interesting kind of get this particular pitch. It's real emphatic. It's really like the draw of this particular song. And really, Andre 3000 and Big Boi just talk on the song. They don't really full blown rap on here. It just is kind of sing songy at the beginning, and then it just has like some ad libs and stuff like that that are just real melodic. And then it's just a recital from Andre and a recital from Big Boi as far as that kind of pitch happens with it. But as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, but it's just kind of the concept. So that's basically the album as far as that pitch can happen. So yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score, I'm going to go ahead and give it 10 out of 10 also, just because the emphasis of these particular songs is pretty awesome. This album may not have full blown amounts of like nightclub smashes as far as that particular kind of goes. I mean, there are some definitely emphatic ones on here. There are some nice emphasized club songs on here, like So Fresh and So Clean, Miss Jackson, Elevator, some of those type pitches, a little bit of Play His Ball, some of those type ones. There's some emphatic lounge type music like Funkin' Around and Moving Cool, some of those type ones. There's a decent amount of makeshift on here like The Whole World, or at least There's a new concept of like some blue collar makeshift in like the whole world. I think that's definitely what they were preparing to get into. I feel like Miss Jackson's a little bit of like, I feel like Miss Jackson can kind of be a little bit of like makeshift in a more kind of haze type sense, and more kind of Miss Jackson can kind of be blue collar in like a more middle class type sense. I would have to say pretty good pitch to get that one in particular. And then I would have to say there's just some good concepts on here. Definitely Southern playlistic. Basically all the songs that are from some the basically all the 5 songs from Southern Playlistic are just some cruise out kind of like in a lazy summer and Sunday kind of day type pitch as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just some great stuff for that sort of concept, just some smokage, things like that. Just kind of hotboxing some of those type concepts, just some great concepts for that. And just kind of hotboxing the car, getting some Popeyes, some pitches like that as far as that particularly kind of goes. So that's a good concept. And then of course Spotty Oddie Dopalicious is just kind of like a romantic kind of slow dance type song. So there are some emphasized type ones. Definitely has a good concept about it. The social affability is definitely pretty sparkly on this particular album, but they did reach their zenith later in 2003, 2004 as far as that pitch kind of went. But this is just like, for the most part, this has most of their best hits minus the ones off of Speaker Box and Love Below. That's when they truly reached their widespread type appeal. I probably would throw about 3 or 4, maybe 5 songs from those particular 2003 albums on this particular one. You'd probably have like a perfect batch of Outkast, just their overall best hits, I'd have to say. Maybe like a few from Idlewild. I don't remember that album as much, but I'd say that's some good concepts. That's just the basic concept about it. So 10 social. In terms of future, like in terms of future, Outkast for the sake of it is basically broken up. They haven't full blown said that they've broken up, but it just is the likelihood of them putting out more music is kind of minimal. I'd have to say in particular, Andre 3000 has been very elusive the past 15, 16, 17 years as far as that pitch is kind of gone. It's just kind of the concept. Big Boi has dropped some solo albums. I'm definitely going to get to some more Outkast albums as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. But this is definitely a pretty classic album here, I'd have to say. Definitely a pretty widespread amount of vividness and just overall variety type stuff that hits pretty heavily. Just some cruising type music, some nightclub type music, some stuff like that. Some emphasized romantic type music. Just some good, even a few makeshift kind of blue collar middle class type songs on here just to kind of get some good emphasis. I do highly recommend this album, and it is a Southern rap classic, I'd have to say.